Hello all, some familiar names and some new ones as well. Feel free to let us know if this is your first time joining the ROR Community Call. Happy to have you. All right, I've now got 2 minutes past the hour and probably most people have joined, so we'll just begin. I'll introduce the call for you and let you know why we have these and what's going to happen today. So as I mentioned, do feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Tell us who you are, where you're joining from, and we're always interested in how you're using or planning to use ROR. We feature people on these calls who are using ROR, so if you're interested in being so featured, just let us know. Here's today's agenda. We'll do some general announcements, and then we'll hear from various aspects of the ROR initiative, including some updates from our curatorial team, our product team, who are in charge of ROR data. Then we'll tell you a little bit about what's new with ROR's tech, including its API. I'll give you some updates on who is newly adopting ROR or planning to adopt ROR. And then we'll hear a couple of featured presentations from integrators, users, enthusiasts of ROR, including we have Anne Gentil-Bacot from the Scope 3 initiative. And then we'll hear from Tracy Snowden, who's product manager at Elsevier's Mendeley Data and Digital Commons. And Tracy will be joining late. And then we'll have some time for some questions and answers. As I hope you all know, ROR is a global community-led registry of open persistent identifiers for research and funding organizations. We are an initiative, not ourselves an organization, and we are operated as an ongoing collaborative initiative by the California Digital Library, Crossref, and DataCite as part of their operational budget. We do not depend on grants and fees. We are not a membership organization, and we cannot be transferred to a commercial entity because we are a signatory to the principles of open scholarly infrastructure. And if you have not read those principles, I encourage you to do so. We hold these community calls every other month. They are open to everyone and of course free. Our focus is on telling you what we've been up to, getting some feedback from you and letting you know what we'd like to hear about, and of course seeing talks from ROR users. We announce them on our events page and on the ROR Community Forum, and we really encourage you to ask questions in the chat and to comment and ask questions in the chat. You don't have to wait for the question and answer period at the end of the call. Feel free to ask questions there and we will answer them if we can. We record these calls and we post the recordings and the slides on our webpage, and we post the recordings on YouTube as well. And for all of you who are registered, we will send you those links after the call. We do ask you to abide by our code of conduct. And we encourage you, if English is not your primary language, to click Show Captions in Zoom to show captions in your language. It works reasonably well. These calls are one of the primary ways to be involved with the ROR initiative, but if you'd like to participate in other ways, we encourage you to submit feature requests or bug reports on our roadmap on GitHub. We invite you to join our community forums, including the ROR Community Forum and the ROR Technical Forum. Fora, I suppose, is the correct plural for those. And of course, anyone can submit a request for a change to a ROR record or for a new ROR record to be added, and our curators will review that and add it if it is in scope for ROR. And then we encourage you as well just to tell us about your use of ROR. Are you integrating ROR into a system? We'd love to hear about that. So now we're going to give you some general updates, and I will turn it over to ROR's project director, Maria Gould.
Thanks, Amanda. Hello, everyone. Great to see all of you here today. I think, Amanda, we can go to the next slide. Yeah, so first update that I'm excited to share is just an announcement and invitation to everyone about some upcoming events where one or more folks from ROR will be. And hopefully if you are someone who will be at one or more of these events, we'll have a chance to connect up in person. So there's some events, as you can see, taking place over the next few months in various places and venues. Just as a reminder, we keep track of all of these events on the ROR website, and this events page is also where we keep records and recordings and materials from past events. So in case you miss it, you'll have a chance to catch up there. So please catch us at any of these events. We'll post the events page in the chat as well. Next slide. Oh, I have control now. Gotcha. And another quick update is we've published a couple of very exciting case studies on the ROR blog in the last couple of months. One about use of ROR in the US Department of Transportation's research repository, Rosa P. And I see Peyton, who kindly contributed that case study, is on this call today. So thank you, Peyton. And it's a really great use case and example of how ROR is helping with the department's interest in tracking their outputs in their repository. Second blog post to call attention to is ROR and OA report and the Howard Hughes Medical Institute and how they're leveraging ROR's institutional model to track compliance with open access policies. So take a look at those blog posts, and we're linking to them in the chat as well. And then other announcements, I wanted to make sure folks on this call and anyone listening to the recording is aware that we are actually hiring for a role that is designed to support the core ROR team. As Amanda mentioned a few moments ago, ROR is operated as a collaborative initiative by California Digital Library, Crossref, and DataCite. And our three organizations have a shared memorandum of agreement that outlines how we collectively operate and resource and govern ROR. As part of that agreement and part of that structure, that means that everyone who works directly and in a dedicated sense on the ROR team, basically me and Amanda and Adam and Riley, are officially housed at one of ROR's three operating organizations. Many of you on this call have also heard over the past several years from Liz Kersnarich, who was ROR's technical lead. And I'm very sad on a personal note and on behalf of ROR to have to announce that Liz has decided to take a new position, which is great for the new position, but obviously a huge loss for ROR and the ROR community. And the good news is that, as many of you are aware, Liz has been an extremely capable tech lead and really helped to drive ROR's infrastructure development and set it up in very good shape to continue on its path and to remain stable and performant for all those who are using it. And we also, as part of this shared staffing agreement that we have across our three organizations, have engineering support in the interim to keep our registry releases going and to keep an eye on the API and other aspects of our infrastructure. So we are very sad that Liz is moving on. We're very grateful for all of the work that she did to set ROR up for success. Very happy to have this shared staffing agreement whereby we have a lot of fallback to support ROR in the short term. And we're excited to announce that there is a new open role now to be based at DataCite to support software engineering and to be supporting ROR's technical development as well. So quick mention and context for that particular announcement that I wanted to share with all of you. A few other announcements, as you can see here. Crossref, another one of ROR's operating organizations, is inviting applications for a metadata advisory board. This is a great opportunity, as noted here, for anyone interested in how ROR plays a key role in Crossref metadata to get involved. So consider applying. And we also wanted to acknowledge and congratulate the winners of the recently awarded Crossref Metadata Awards for all of their great work in integrating ROR and other aspects of useful scholarly metadata into their Crossref deposits. So congratulations all. And on that note, I will pass over to our curation colleague.
Thank you so much, Maria. That was awesome. Hi, everybody. I'm Riley Marsh. I'm the metadata manager for ROR, and I have a very quick update from the curation side. Oh, there we go. So we recently completed a big round of funder registry reconciliation, and we ended up adding over 1,000 records for funding organizations, mostly from frequently cited funders in China. And we also made some other regional improvements. We added some new Portuguese research organizations next to a reconciliation project with PT Chris, and we also brought in new Japanese organizations using data from NISTEP. So if you work in or with any of these regions, you might notice some better coverage and matching in the registry, and I'm actually very excited to be working on these projects with our people to close these gaps. And I wanted to also mention that we're still seeing a very high number of requests, so I wanted to take some time to thank everyone for their patience if you're waiting on anything to be processed. And that's it for me. So thank you. I'm going to pass it off to Adam to talk tech updates, I believe.
Yeah, thanks, Riley. Hi, everyone. Adam Buttrick, product manager for ROR here to provide some updates on our recent technical work. So as we touched on in our last call, the focus of our recent efforts has been on adding client identification capabilities to the ROR API. The goal here is that by the end of the year, coinciding with the deprecation of version 1 of our schema, we will also be begin applying a rate limit based on the presence or absence of a valid client identifier. This will allow us to manage our API traffic more effectively, ensuring our services remain healthy and sustainable for all users while preserving the same generous rate limit of about 2,000 requests per 5 minutes for identified clients. In this new model, requests without a valid client ID will still have access to all the same API routes and queries, but receive a rate limit of 50 requests per 5 minutes. The development work on this is now complete, so we'll be launching our preview version of API client identification over the course of the next couple months, with some communications and documentation updates on this soon to follow. This preview period will allow for users to provision a valid client identifier via a form on our site that can then be included in all requests to identify themselves in anticipation of the rate limiting change that will again occur at the end of this year. It's important, however, to note that during this preview period, we will not be applying any new rate limiting based on the presence or absence of client identifiers. This is just simply a window of time for us to do some more testing and monitoring in our production environments and give folks the opportunity to preempt any disruption that would be caused by this change. As we move closer to the actual implementation, we will also be sending out lots of messages to our various channels about the pending imposition of these new rate limits for unidentified clients. So as I also just briefly mentioned, I want to remind everyone that we will be deprecating Schema and API version 1 at the end of 2025. We've been discussing this change for quite some time, beginning actually with the launch of version 2 of our API back in March of 2024. Version 2 has now been available for more than a year at this point, with our official versioning policy stating that we will give at least a year's notice before pursuing deprecation. We've now surpassed that time frame and are providing several additional months to make the change to version 2 again through the end of 2025. So as part of this deprecation period, beginning in July, we will also be switching the default schema version in our API to use version 2. Through the end of the year, however, both version 1 and version 2 will still be available by explicitly specifying the version in the request, as can be done just right now at this moment in our API. So please review our documentation and plan to make this transition to version 2 as soon as you're able to in advance of these changes that I just described. We will be putting out lots of more communications as we make the change I just described in July, and also move forward towards the full deprecation at the end of the year. As always, reach out to support@roar.org if you need any assistance with this transition, you have questions. Okay, and that's all from me. I'm going to turn things over to Amanda for some adoption updates.
Oh, thank you, Adam. Sorry, glitchy slides. I'm going to mention on the topic of communications about the version 1 deprecation, there will be a lot of those communications coming out, maybe even almost too many. I'm thinking about like weekly notifications to RORTech, maybe bi-weekly to not annoy people. We'll be mentioning it on our social media as well, and we'll be doing our best to get the word out to users of the ROR API that just that default API request, the data returned from that will change in July. We expect probably that some people will miss all those announcements, and we will do our best to get in touch with them afterward, but we'll do our best. Now I wanted to just give you some recent highlights and statistics about who is using ROR. Some really actually exciting, notable recent ROR adoptions, ones that we've known about, but work has been completed on. So Adapon, which is a very widely used hosting platform for publishers, has upgraded to a version of the Crossref schema that can accept ROR IDs. So that means that a lot of the publishers who use Adapon as their hosting platform and get their XML from there can now register ROR IDs in Crossref DOI metadata. And I've heard sort of anecdotally, I haven't been systematically tracking it, but there are several publishers who use Adapon that have been including ROR IDs in their XML, and those just haven't been making it through to Crossref DOI metadata because of this necessary work on Adapon's part. So we are anticipating this to spike the graph of ROR IDs in Crossref DOI metadata as more and more items are registered using the Adapon platform. So that's very exciting. And in fact, Patrick Hargett, who's the product manager for this, has agreed to come and speak at a future ROR Community Call, either in July or in September, might be September, so keep an eye out for that. Also, very new integration, but some of you may know the symplectic elements system, which is, I would call it an RIS system, a research information system. It's one that many organizations use to track research at their own institution. It's one that many even regional and national entities use to track research. Very widely used, very nice system. Has now added ROR as a source of organization metadata for external organizations. And we're going to try to get them to come and tell us about that too. And we think that's a really exciting integration. One interesting, this is a user of ROR not in a system, but in metadata. As some of you undoubtedly know, the hot new thing in scholarly communications is for funders to register DOIs for grants. Both Crossref and DataCite have grant registration initiatives, and a major Canadian funder, Fonds de Recherche du Québec, is using Crossref to register unique persistent identifiers, DOIs, for the grants that it awards. And they've registered over 22,000 of these awards with Crossref. So all of those awards have DOIs, and all of those DOIs have the ROR ID for FRQ as the funder, which is fantastic. So they are one of the first users of the ROR ID to identify a funder in Crossref metadata. Because actually, as the last bullet on this slide mentions, you can now do that in Crossref metadata. You can use ROR IDs to identify funders, which is wonderful. That was released in March. We also, for those of you who use R, very, very widely used statistical package. I have to say, I do not understand what these things are. I don't know what grant packages are. I do not know what posits dev tools are, but nevertheless, our users, I'm sure, do know what they are and are happy to hear that those now support ROR. So there's a really nice blog post on the our OpenSci website about that support for ROR. I have my usual slides about ROR in DOI metadata, including Crossref metadata, DataCite metadata, and ORCID metadata. We're now at nearly 250,000 ROR IDs in Crossref records, which is great. The types of items with ROR IDs is always one that I've been keeping an eye on. Actually, when I first began tracking this, by far the most records that had ROR IDs in them were actually grants, because the funders really had not been using the funder registry. So when they were newly registering grants, they just began with ROR IDs. But now journal articles, as it should be, are almost double the number of grants. So we are seeing more and more publishers using ROR IDs for author affiliations as well as for funder identification in Crossref metadata, which is great. Here are the top 10 providers of ROR IDs to Crossref. Arthur, I see you. I'm sorry. FRQ has done all those 22,000 records. They have outpaced you on the leaderboard, but only not by very much. Not by very much. eLife, I mentioned actually earlier those Crossref metadata awards, and I'm very excited about that. And it was really fun to see that at the Crossref mid-year community update a couple of weeks ago. So eLife won one of those awards because they are metadata powerhouses, really, I must say. So eLife won one of those awards. I think, I'm sure that APS and Optica were up there. I'm sure you were in the running, but there are only certain categories. They go by size, they go by most improved metadata, all that kind of stuff. So we're always happy to see this, happy to show off those who are doing really well. Welcome. I think I saw Michael from EMBL here on the call, Michael Parkin, the European PMC, EMBL EBI, has been registering grants on behalf of Welcome for quite a while. Other Canadian users of ROR, John Benjamin's. Front Matter is actually a blog post registration entity. Inter-American Development Bank, Universitat Politècnica de Catalunya, all really great users of ROR. Happy to see that. I've started doing a little bit of that same thing with DataCite metadata. Hopefully this is not too confusing a slide, but you can see that we've got over 22 million records in DataCite records with ROR IDs used for creator or contributor affiliation. And you can see some of the top contributors of ROR IDs for those, including Japan's National Institute for Fusion Science, Figshare, CERN, which is really Zenodo. It's really the Zenodo platform that's providing those. Dryad, Dryad, of course, is usually in the top of all of these, Dryad being the first integrator of ROR. DataCite also supports ROR IDs for funder identification. We have fewer of those, partly because Japan's National Institute for Fusion Sciences does use funder IDs to identify funders, but we do have plenty of these. I'm going to mention that really fantastic Department of Transportation blog post where we lauded Peyton and Peyton's team's efforts on behalf of metadata does say that the U.S. Department of Transportation repository was in the top 10 of providers of ROR IDs for funding, and they've just fallen off. I think they're probably 11th right now, so they're no longer in this leaderboard, but they were when we published the post. So we've got lots and lots of ROR IDs used for funder identification, including from Zenodo, including from Dryad. And you can see here on this slide too, highlighted Mendeley Data is now one of the top providers of ROR IDs for funder identifiers as well. And we're going to hear more about that later in the call from Tracy Snowden. And then finally for DataCite, nearly 21 million records with ROR IDs used for a publisher. And in this leaderboard, we do again see the U.S. Department of Transportation. We see the California Digital Library, ably represented by Adam Buttrick. We see DISCO. We see that Leibniz Institute is a repository called Strain Info, which is pretty great. And then we have, some institutional repositories and things like that. So ORCID in ROR, or ROR in ORCID, I should say. Plenty of records, nearly 4.7 million ORCID records have a ROR ID. And as many of you know, if you're familiar with the ORCID schema, they're using ROR IDs for all kinds of organizations, where you're employed, where you're affiliated, where you've gotten funding, lots and lots of uses of ROR in an ORCID record. And we are ORCID's recommended organizational identifier, and I think they will be moving to ROR exclusively at some point. But right now we are, I think it was last time in March, ROR had just gotten over that 50% bump, and now we're at 53% of all of the records with organization identifiers in ORCID have a ROR ID. That's great growth. And so now I'm going to turn it over to one of our guest speakers, Anne Gentil-Bicot, who is going to tell us about Scope 3 and why Scope 3 supports ROR. Anne?
Yes. Hello. Can you hear me? Yes, I have access to the controller. So my name is Anne Gentil-Bicot. I work at CERN in the CERN Scientific Information in the Open Science team. I'm here today together with my colleague Pia Kochma, and we will speak about new mechanism we have integrated in Scope 3 contract structure. It's a new mechanism to incentivize publishers to provide better open science services to the community. But first, I would like to give a quick reminder of what is Scope 3 for those who don't know this initiative. So our mission is to enable open access publishing in high-energy physics and remove financial and administrative barriers to science. Scope 3 is an international collaboration. It started in 2014, and it's now a partnership consisting of more than 3,000 libraries, research organizations, and founders from 47 countries. And this collaboration centrally pays open access publishing services in 11 journals, and published the articles are published in CC BY under CC BY license. The Scope 3 is so-called, we call it Diamond Open Access model because there is no publication cost for authors. And since 2014, it has published more than 74,000 articles, so in 11 journals in the field of high energy physics. So if we have a look to the Scope 3 partnership, it's really global. So in purple, you see the countries who contribute to Scope 3, who are member of the Scope 3 partnership, and they contribute to this initiative according to the share of articles they are publishing in those journals. And in green, you see the countries who benefit from this initiative, even if they don't, if they are not partners, if they don't fund the initiative. And because Scope 3 is really global, it's every author in the world can publish in the Scope 3 journals. And the journals are those ones listed here. So it's 11 journals in total from 7 publishers. And it covers more than 90% of the literature in energy physics. Some journals are fully funded by Scope 3, and some others are only partially funded by Scope 3 because they are not completely high energy physics. So only the part in energy physics will be funded by Scope 3. So as I said, Scope 3 exists since 2014, and it was the result of a call for tender that we did towards publishers to establish contracts with unit prices and maximum contract values. And 10 years after, this mechanism still works. as you have seen, it works well. We have published more than almost 75,000 articles. And with enabling some cost control for the whole community. But when we prepared the phase 4 of Scope 3, so the phase starting as of 25, the Scope 3 governance studied different scenarios on what to do with Scope 3, how to make it evolve, how to make it evolve. And several scenarios were studied, and the Scope 3 Governing Council decided to add to the contract structure a new mechanism, the open science elements. This is a mechanism that financially incentivizes publishers on delivery of open science elements. So the first aim, of course, is to provide better service quality. And then there is a calculation of the compliance with those open science elements based on comparative scoring performance with other publishers from the Scope 3 set. And as a result, it creates an adjustment of financial compensation for publishers. So it can be up to plus 15% on the contract value, or minus 10%, according to how much the publisher deliver on those open science elements. And this is the list of the open science elements that have been added to the Scope 3 contract. I cannot go into all details here, but the elements focus on provision of better metadata, provision of persistent identifiers, better integration of data and softwares, more innovative open science practices like transparent peer review, better accessibility to content, and transparency on some of values that are important for the Scope 3 community. And when it comes to identifiers, you see that the Scope 3 community has decided that ROR was a really important one. And it was it was an evidence that ROR should be promoted, because ROR is an identifier for institutions that is really crucial for traceability of and transparency of research. It is open, standardized, and interoperable. It allows better metadata for affiliations. And for example, for us, for Scope 3 team, having good metadata for affiliations is really good, because this is how also we calculate the share for each country, the number of articles they publish in those journals. So this is really important to have an ambiguous affiliation metadata. So those are the elements, and a few words about the evaluation and the results. So here I focus on ROR, of course, but we of course evaluated all the elements, and you can have full details of this on the Scope 3 website. So for ROR, we calculated the presence of ROR in the cross-ref metadata for the set of articles we evaluated, and also in the Scope 3 repository, because we also collect metadata from the publishers. And we calculated the share of the ROR IDs compared to the number of institutions we had in the metadata. And publishers could gain 2 points for this element if at least 75% of the affiliations have a ROR in the metadata. And the result of this is, so 2 publishers gained the max number of points for ROR. One of them is actually listed in the top 10 providers of ROR IDs. So we see that there is room for improvement for the other publishers. But we really see this mechanism. So of course, we want to provide incentives to publishers to improve their open science practices. We don't want that they see that as we don't want to punish them. We want to help them to do better. And actually, we also discuss a lot with those publishers And we already see, for example, that some publishers are already working to improve the ROR coverage on their metadata. And so we will do this evaluation every year. So next year, in January 26, we'll do exactly the same evaluation, hoping to see more better results for everyone. So I think I run out of my time, but I would like to thank you for your attention. As I said, there are much more information on the Scope 3 website on this process, and we will also organize a forum in the 18th of June. There will be 2 sessions. It's open to everyone. There will be 1 session in the morning, 1 session in the afternoon, so we cover everyone in the world can attend. It will be the same session repeated twice, and it will be focused on those open science elements with more details on how it works. And of course, you can reach out also if you have any question.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Anne. I think that's a fascinating initiative, and it's particularly interesting to learn about incentives for open metadata for publishers. I think that's something we could all learn from. Do feel free to, again, post questions in the chat. We should have some time at the end as well. But for now, I'm going to hand it over to Tracy Snowden, who is going to tell us about ROR in Mendeley data and digital commons. Tracy?
Thank you, Amanda. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Tracy Snowden. I am product manager for Digital Commons Data, Mendeley Data, and I oversee our relationship with the NIH GRAE, the Generalist Repository Ecosystem Initiative, employed at Elsevier. So thank you for inviting us today. We're going to talk about ROR's integration. We have adopted ROR both for funder and institutional affiliations. We're going to be largely focused on funder today. And for institutional affiliations, we still maintain Ringgold, but later this year are planning to move entirely to ROR. So we decided to do kind of a transitional approach to allow time for some of our institutions to catch up with things. Okay, why ROR? Well, number one, I think we're all probably aware of Crossref sunsetting, so there's a need. Number two, I personally became aware through our participation in GRAE, which I think has done an incredible job, and Amanda and the ROR team have been a tremendous partner there. We also did see institutional demand from our digital commons data clients and ease of integration. So one thing I have to say, I spoke with the tech squad and they said, yeah, this was really easy. It was really painless. There were no real challenges. There was no real follow-up. It was just kind of do the work. So that's great news. Thank you. So how does ROR funder metadata get added? Pretty simply, when a researcher goes to upload a data set in Mendeley data or digital commons data, they are walked through a step-by-step process. One of those pop-ups is to add funder. There is a text funder search, and if there is a ROR affiliation already for that entity, that's going to automatically populate. There is also an other input so that they can add information there as well and manually input grant IDs. And then all of the work is really happening on the back end, but the funding populates, the funding bodies would then populate on the data set level. And you'd be able to see if there are multiple funders and or their associated grant IDs or affiliations. And for affiliation metadata, it is pretty similar when you go to add yourself or a contributor. There are contributor details, again, an institution text field that allows you to enter. And if that affiliation exists with ROR and or Ringgold, it's there. Now, the problem that we face currently is if it's Ringgold, it could default to Ringgold as opposed to ROR. We've made For the institutions that are pushing for ROR first, we've made exceptions for that. And then when we do away with Ringgold, obviously that will no longer be a problem by the end of the year. Okay, where and how is that ROR identifier discovered? So it's really at the XML level. When you export, that it gets reported to DataSite. And then that information, I know that this is not a beautiful picture, but if you look very, very carefully, put your glasses on, there is a blue line here under which you could see that you would be able to see the ROR identifier for affiliation. And down here, the same thing, the ROR identifier for funder. So it can be found in the file. Okay, and then thank you, Amanda, for she did a little legwork for me on this. But since we've implemented ROR for Funder, which hasn't been that long, I think it was early this year or late last year when that work was completed, already nearing 22,000 data sets with ROR Funder metadata, according to DataSite. And just to give you an idea, we generally average between the two. We've been trending upwards, I think, especially since our involvement with Gray and the NIH. And we're sitting at roughly 2,600 data sets per month now. And that's up, I think, by 30%, around 30% year over year. So we're seeing quite a few increases. And I'm also happy to report we're not getting, these increases are appropriate. So it's not like we're getting data sets for domain specific repositories. We're getting actual generalist repository data sets. So that's refreshing. Okay, so what is next? As mentioned, search by funder already exists, but we are making improvements to our search capabilities, including adding search by PID option. We're starting with integrating for ORCID authentication. Once that's complete, then we'll be able to search by ORCID ID, DOI, or ROR ID. So that's all on the roadmap. We're looking forward to that. And as mentioned earlier, in late Q4, we do plan to start that complete switch from Ringgold to ROR. Okay, so as of right now, the question, here are some frequently asked questions. Can ROR be found in that full record? So as you saw, it is added to the DataSite metadata. The user would only see the text at present. And, can it be sent to the ROR profile, or how could it be searched for? So we don't currently link to ROR.org from a funder or institution name, but we're open to it. So it's just really a matter of demand, but it is discoverable via the ROR.org API. And the ROR identifier is available in our Mendeley Data and Digital Commons Data API. So if you leverage the API, that ROR integration is automatically available to you as well. And I think that's it. I should have taken a note from Anne and provided a contact slide, which I think I forgot, but I will put my email into the chat if anyone is interested. And if anyone has questions, feel free to contact me.
Thank you, Tracy. That was really, really fascinating. I'll just mention that specifically about displaying ROR IDs and or linking to ROR IDs from within a user interface. That's something that we are fine with people excluding. There are, I think sometimes it can confuse users to see the ROR ID if they don't know what it is. What we think the primary use of ROR is that integration into a lookup so that people can type in a name, see the name, and then most of what ROR is doing is on the back end there. It's powering that lookup and it's ensuring that all that data is clean and normalized on the back end. So I'm always a little on the fence about this because of course we'd love the promotion of having the ROR link, but
I'll add, it was a decision that predated me as product manager. And also in coming on board and doing some customer discovery, we felt that searching by ROR identifier was more, was what was commonly coming up, that's what's in demand. But it, like I said, certainly something that we're open to and capable of. If it's beneficial, we can talk about it.
I've done a little bit of UX research, and I think it makes sense to leave it off, to be honest, for a lot, but we'll see. But that's really to do about searching by ROR ID and some kind of advanced search. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. Other questions that people have, feel free to just unmute and ask if you like. I can certainly ask questions. Tracy, you may not be able to answer this question, but I'm curious if you have any insight into ROR adoption in other Elsevier products or other Elsevier journals. Tracy, do you know if that's on the roadmap or?
I don't know that presently. What I can say is that Elsevier is moving towards a wider, more highly shared data model across products to support interoperability and our open science policy. So I think that that's probably an inevitability of the future, but whether that's 12, 24, or 36 months out is above my pay grade to determine.
Right. And I mean, I happen to, and I know Elsevier is an enormous organization, and there are different parts of it. But I will just mention that Elsevier, of course, does publish journals in the area that Scope 3 funds. So I know, and you may have some insight into Elsevier and open metadata. You need not name names or spill details, but I would be curious, Anne, on that head, about any ideas you have for how to incentivize this kind of open metadata, how others can follow your model at Scope 3 of incentivizing open metadata.
Yeah, so our hope when we launched those open science elements was, of course, the journals, the Scope 3 journals, it's only 11 journals, and for some publishers like Elsevier or Springer, it's a really small set compared to their portfolio. But really, our wish was to incentivize them to work maybe on those journals first, but that this will have an impact on the rest of the portfolio. It was really the aim. And we know that some publishers have already worked on their whole portfolio. I think it's not a secret. We know, for example, that APS has already is already one of the top 10 providers of ROR ID. You listed it in your slides before. So it's possible, but it's true that it requires some, and it's maybe for those big publishers, it requires more work on their workflows and metadata structure, and this way we can acknowledge that.
Yep.
I'd really like to investigate it further on our as well. I mean, Mendeley data hosts, so there are two ways that journals intersect with Mendeley data and or digital commons data presently. One is that digital commons data is a component of digital commons IR, which features a journals showcasing module. And the second is that we actually host via Science Direct on Mendeley data, the data sets that are connected to roughly 3,900 journals. So the question is just one of investigating, is that information bidirectional or not? You know, how can someone access it? So Amanda, I'll do some digging for that, and then feel free to share it with your community, or we can think strategically. And I'd be very interested in learning more about incentives as well. And I'm sure the great community would.
Fantastic. Yep. We've had quite an active discussion in the chat, mostly about curation initiatives. So just to mention, we're the most recent question is whether we can focus on improving coverage in ROR of Korean institutions or funders. So I don't know if Adam or Riley, you'd like to address that.
Yeah, I can tackle that. So the regional initiatives that we have are the result of some similar bodies in those regions approaching us to work on this kind of reconciliation. So we haven't had that same kind of approach from anyone in Korea, but we are always open to that form of approach outside of the kind of standard curation requests that we receive relative to all kinds of integrations across the world. So if you are working on a bulk registration that you want us to add into ROR, please reach out, send us an email at registry.ror.org. If you know of large-scale institutions in Korea that are pursuing that kind of reconciliation, again, let us know. Feel free to put them in touch with us, and we can work on improving that coverage.
Yeah.
Actually,
We do.
I sent
Yeah, go ahead.
an email yesterday, actually.
Oh, okay.
To you specifically, Jungwoo. So hello. And yeah, feel free to keep on that thread. I look forward to hearing from you.
Jungwoo, you can feel free to unmute and speak if you like, but I believe you might be affiliated with KISTI, which is an organization that we've reached out to before, the Korean, I've forgotten what it stands for, Korean Information Science and Technical Information, Institute for Science and Technical Information, probably. So yeah, I think that would be an organization we would love to work with. Because global coverage is something we take very seriously, and it is something that I think, are working on country by country. Anything else? Well, thank you very much to our two presenters. Thank you to all of you for attending, and we'll hope to see you in July at the next ROR Community Call. And in the meantime, I hope you have a good spring. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.